We often get there when we're consulting to our clients and we say to them, ultimately, what are you accountable for? What's your metric? What do you do to change that outcome every day that you come into the office? And if you don't have that, you have a whole lot of people who haven't got responsibility. The more that you can set those expectations amongst the team, the more effort, the more targeted effort you see. So yeah, I think it's super important to have a test and learn method, but also to give people autonomy to go about it. One of the funniest tests that we ever ran, Sid, was for a brand who didn't think that improving the speed of their site was going to have an impact on conversions. So we ran an A/B test that put a delay on there. We showed the impact on conversion rate of slowing the site down further. But let's just say it was significant. and they realized that their clients, particularly the ones coming through paid acquisition, had a real need for speed. We see a lot of businesses adopt personalization without strategy or without validation of the value that personalization brings. For me, it's very much a test, learn, adopt model, and that personalization should be, as a follow-on from experimentation, not just willy-nilly. I think to me, experimentation is an always-on approach, and it should be, and that's not just e-commerce in business. If you're not testing and learning, you're slowly dying. Contribution margin is king, and there's so many businesses, particularly again thinking back to COVID, who had that COVID boom and we're just super inefficient and not sustainable. We're seeing a lot of businesses be acquired or go under at present who just never built a sustainable business. They didn't have to for a little while there. And the reality is, you don't run a business for scale, you run a business for profit. Every test isn't going to drive up your AOV, but understanding its role in indicating where things are going and how they're improving, hugely important.
Welcome to the first episode of the CRO Wizards series by VWO Podcast. In this series, we speak to top CRO leaders in e-commerce, media, subscription, retail, banking, and other industries about CRO strategies and the positive impact they can have on your business. Before we speak to our special guest for this episode, here's a quick summary of who we are and what we do. VWO is a leading experience optimization platform. Using our latest product, VWO Insights, you can analyze user journeys and identify conversion roadblocks on your website and mobile app. So without any further delay, let's jump right into the conversation.
Today we have Sean Clanchy joining us as a special guest. Sean is currently the managing director at Swanky Australia, a leading Shopify Plus agency. At Swanky, he has also served as the digital strategy lead and the head of optimization, helping clients achieve their e-commerce goals through innovation and experimentation. Sean's journey to the helm of Swanky has been remarkable. He played a pivotal role in growing the agency from a small team of 4 to an international award-winning e-commerce powerhouse of 70 plus employees with locations in UK, Australia, and France. Today, Sean and his team craft bespoke subscription stores on Shopify Plus. After launch, they offer support in paid acquisition, conversion, and retention strategies. Sean's extensive experience from strategy development to execution makes him a pivotal voice in CRO with a deep understanding of intricate nuances of successful conversions. Join us as we delve in Sean's journey and gain insights into the world of CRO. Hi, Sean. Welcome to CRO Wizards series by VWO Podcast. How are you doing today?
Yeah, good, Sid. Geez, you've really put me on a pedestal there. Hopefully I can live up to it.
Well, I've gone through your profile and I see you have done a remarkable job. So it's great having you on this podcast. And before we get started, I just wanted to, understand what does a typical day look like, in life of a CRO professional?
I suppose my day-to-day is probably a little bit more broad than just CRO professional. So obviously keeping across the key accounts within Swanky's Australian and APAC division.
Right.
And then mentoring our staff members as they're working on strategies across those key accounts. So, yeah, leading the business now. So a little bit of a change out, but realistically, I'm still across a broad mix of our clients. Supporting the team in Europe. We do have a bit of cross-pollination across international clientele as well, which is fun. I suppose from here we handle quite a bit of the West Coast of the US as well. So let's have that overlap. And then, obviously those key accounts internationally require a bit of collaboration. We have sort of that 24/7 delivery team now between the different office locations. So just understanding what's moved forward overnight what's moving forward through our day and what's going back across the teams in those other time zones through the evening again. So yeah, there's quite a bit going on. Obviously, mentoring the team members, understanding strengths and weaknesses through our recruitment process,
Right.
and then understanding the trials and tribulations that our clients have got. They are all the same, but all different. So fun.
So it seems like there's a lot on your table, considering that you have been leading the team as well. So not just from a CRO professional point of view, you also have things a lot in terms of the management part, in terms of looking after the team, looking after all the strategies. So hats off to the work that you have been doing so far. It's fine. Yeah. Great. Sean, what sparked your interest in e-commerce, and how did you begin your journey in this field?
Yeah, it's a good question. I suppose I think it's fair to say I've always been quite commercially minded. I really enjoy digging into the nitty gritty and understanding cause and effect.
Right.
And having gone from an advertising sales role in Australia, mainly selling to services businesses with pretty poor attribution of ROI.
Right.
When I moved to the UK back in 2015, I managed to land in a enterprise CRO consulting group and thought that was the coolest thing going. Really understood, really enjoyed discovering and uncovering data. It's pre-GDPR as well, so obviously a little bit more creeping around. But yeah, jumping in, understanding cause and effect, understanding that test and learn methodology, and then as I sort of matured through that organization and moved across into the Swanky and Shopify ecosystem, having more and more accessible data, having more and more understanding of the impact that we were able to have, but also the education piece. Obviously, we're not just running a test for an outcome, we're running a test for education and learning and trying to understand the customer and understand as well, not just how we can apply it in the cause of an A/B test, but how do we multiply that value out? It may be that the feedback we capture, the hypotheses that we validate affects everything from product development and branding, the whole way through to full funnel marketing strategy. So really enjoyed that. And I suppose I was lucky enough that I accommodated some of that in my own business. I had an e-commerce business for a little while there while I was in the UK. So
as you rightly said, it's not just about the outcomes, it's about also understanding more in terms of the business persona, because every client might have a different requirement. Their success metric would be different, right? So there's a lot of personalized strategies that need to go into each and every client that you work with. So totally agreed upon that. And with your expertise in subscription e-commerce, could you please explain to our audience what subscription e-commerce entails, and how does the subscription e-commerce market in Australia compare to its development in the other parts of the world?
That's a curly one. I suppose when we're talking subscription, everyone has that base understanding, whether it's toilet paper or tampons, it's that order that rocks up every week, month, or whatever cadence you set. But I suppose our application of subscription is quite a bit broader than that. Obviously, it can be automated replenishment. It can be gated content. We're seeing a lot of universities around the world now starting to move to gated content portals.
Right.
We were also starting to see more and more, not buy now, pay later as such, but certainly almost a subscription offering for everything from white goods to digital technologies to obviously Netflix, classic example. So we're seeing a lot of different adoptions of subscriptions, and that's really making things interesting, I suppose. Shopify obviously being our penultimate path for e-commerce, being applied in a lot of different areas that historically it may not have been considered for, which is just really good fun. I suppose to go further forward to the Australia application, we're seeing a heck of a lot here. I think Australia is quite a novel, well, not necessarily novel market, but a really good test bed market. So there's some fundamental difficulties in Australia. You've got big different, distances, high freight costs, and a relatively small population base. So I think what we're seeing here with the brands who do establish themselves and validate themselves in this market, they do tend to scale well internationally. The most obvious one being who gives a crap, going back to the toilet paper example. If you can validate yourself in this business and solve the problems of the Australian market, you tend to do very well when you go into those other markets, provided you can differentiate yourself. So,
fair enough. Because even I've seen this pattern of what you exactly said. If you're able to do well in the Australian market, it kind of makes things easy in the other territories as well, because the adoption to CRO, I believe, is comparatively better in the other regions and territories. If you're able to do the right set of work in Australia, I think it definitely makes things easy in the other parts as well. And do you notice any distinctive patterns in visitor behavior on subscription e-commerce website, or could you share the methods you use for visitor behavior research?
I wouldn't say that there's distinctive patterns as such, because there is so much breadth in product type, price point, customer cohorts, so on. I think at the end of the day, our analysis process, while you'll have slight variances, is always going to be relatively straight up and down. You've got that traffic composition, flow analysis, understanding who's coming to the site, how they're journeying through the site, that side of things. I always think about the 3 stages ultimately of who, what, where, and then moving through to when and what. So again, if we think about moving through from traffic analysis and journey mapping, then we move into UX analysis and we start to think we're uncovering the why. And then often voice of customer is where ultimately the customer tells me what is wrong or what is right. It might be the common negatives that need to be resolved or the common positives that need to be emphasized. But that's our typical journey. And I mean, obviously there's tools like VWO that play a big part in that UX analysis piece. The voice of customer piece, you can leverage a survey function, but obviously if we move into understanding our customer service, understanding our product reviews, our passive feedback through social channels, aggregating all of that, and starting to leverage that to build out our experimentation roadmap, and then obviously prioritization. Where do we put our effort first? But yeah, that's how we're typically working through. And obviously, it is a pretty straightforward process in some respects, but I think the place where we see most people fall down is actually in the rigor to stick to prioritization.
Right.
It's not about, we talk about hippos quite a bit. Not about the highest income person's opinion, guys. It's ultimately about the customer's opinion and the scale of the audience affected.
No, I really like the point of the 5 Ws that you have used to categorize your customers, right? So I think that helps us deep dive into the nuances of what exactly a customer wants, and also, gets us into doing both the qualitative and the quantitative analysis, the mixture that is required to, help you get the right set of ideation for the clients and what can work for them and what could not work for them. In terms of experimentation and personalization are both vital in e-commerce. When should business focus on one over the other?
I think to me, experimentation isn't always on approach, and it should be. And that's not just e-commerce in business. If you're not testing and learning, you're slowly dying.
Right.
At the end of the day, people's behavior and expectations do change. So experimentation has to be a constant. I think personalization can be frustrating. We see a lot of businesses adopt personalization without strategy or without validation of the value that personalization brings. So to me, it's very much a test, learn, adopt model, and that personalization should be, as a follow-on from experimentation, not just willy-nilly. And even with that, you've got to have that sort of your control sample, so you're reviewing and understanding your true baseline. So
it's important to understand the baseline and also understand the need for experimentation, because it's not about just getting the traffic to your website. It's also about how much of this traffic is relevant and how much of this traffic is actually converting, right? So I really like the point when you said if you're not experimenting, you're idly dying, right? So that way it helps us understand that each and every business now should be getting into a point wherein they need to focus a lot on experimentation and start working in terms of growing their CRO team eventually.
There's been so much boom and bust over the last little while with the COVID peak in digital.
Exactly.
And now there's been a little bit of bust. Obviously, different economies around the world slowing down, but I think the piece there, when I think about ultimately talent, people want the ability to affect their key metric. They need to have the ability to affect change. They need to have the ability to take ownership. And I think we often get there when we're consulting to our clients and we say to them, ultimately, what are you accountable for? What's your metric? What do you do to change that outcome every day that you come into the office? And if you don't have that, you have a whole lot of people who haven't got responsibility and are frustrated by that. And I think the more that you can set those expectations amongst the team, the more effort, the more targeted effort you see. So Yeah, I think it's super important to have a test and learn method, but also to give people autonomy to go about it.
About setting the expectations right, and then also learning from each and every test that you run in terms of what would work well and what doesn't work well. So totally agree. Could you please talk about an optimization project that you provided a steep learning curve, talking about learning, and led to great outcomes?
I won't go into the specific brands, but an example there, we health product brand, consumable milkshake supplement product. If you browse our website, you'll probably work out what I'm talking about. But ultimately, their focus was very much on conversion rate, but they were a subscription brand and are a subscription brand. And it's all about LTV. And so while they had fixated their experimentation program entirely on improving conversion rate, the reality was they were leaving money on the table because their churn rate was quite high and quite early in people's subscription cycle. So one of the things there that we discovered fairly early on was that they were setting an unrealistic expectation. They're an organic product. They were really good on their health standing, but trying to tell everyone that this is a great taste that everyone's going to like was just, it wasn't real. And the reality was changing the way they talked about the product, the way that people consumed it, to talk more about this is how I eat, drink, digest, whatever. This is how I put my spin on things.
Right.
Saw their conversion rate drop, but that was fine because the LTV in that subscription cycle extended by 40 or 50%. And all of a sudden, the economy of scale there was huge. So that was an interesting one where not telling people what they wanted to hear, but what they needed to hear had the better result from a commercial perspective and obviously from a profitability. I'd love an additional 50% in LTV, even if I have to sacrifice 10% conversion rate. So, yeah.
That's an impressive outcome in terms of getting such an improvement, and just by changing small approach in terms of how you present yourselves, right? Any other projects that you would want to highlight?
We've been doing a lot in the pet sector, and we've probably found that to be a particularly resilient sector as well. It's interesting. People spend so much more money, so much more money feeding their dog than themselves when budgets get tight. That's quite bizarre. But I suppose the aspect there was both moving away from a pure commercial metric and moving into data enrichment, profile enrichment, and what was the value of that. So in the case of this brand, we had a real focus on capturing more information about pet. And this is a no-brainer, but at the same time, there's so many businesses not doing it well. The more we captured about the pet, the more we regurgitated and incorporated that content back into the journey and the experience of the buyer. It was all about making sure that the messaging was relevant and tailored, and true personalization. And then beyond that builds so much community, it built so much advocacy, and it, again, built conversion. At the end of the day, people wanted to have that understanding that yes, they had the right product, yes, they were giving their dog the right experience in the example I'm thinking of. And at the end of the day, what is the value of that? And that came into tailoring in messaging. It was birthdays, it was bringing in relevant reviews to help further validate, yeah, this is the right product, or this is the right additional product to increase basket and LTV. And so that brand has scaled from sort of, I think it was low seven figures to fairly nice 8-figure revenue in 2 years. And the reality there was that increase in revenue and scale. There was no increase in team size. It was all process efficiency and just optimization of the site. And that's brilliant. People want that.
That clearly shows how the right strategy in terms of optimization can help you scale your revenue, scale your LTV, just by optimization and not just by increasing your team size, right? So
contribution margin is king, and there's so many businesses, particularly again thinking back to COVID, who had that COVID boom and were just super inefficient and not sustainable. We're seeing a lot of businesses be acquired or go under at present, who just never built a sustainable business because they didn't have to for a little while there. And the reality is, you don't run a business for scale; you run a business for profit.
Exactly. So, very true. Very true. Totally agree. E-commerce brands, since you're working, with e-commerce subscriptions, they prioritize revenue and sales. But what's your opinion on the significance of the micro conversion metrics on the website? Like, are they merely vanity metrics?
In some cases, for sure, but I think it really depends on which ones and in what context. I mentioned there a second ago that profile enrichment was the thing that led to value for a lot of clients. At the end of the day, first-party data is magic sauce at the moment. So understanding that those micro conversions, understanding the contribution that they have to the future outcome, and understanding their role in the larger overarching strategy, really, really important. And obviously, every test isn't going to drive up your AOV. Every test isn't going to drive up your conversion rate, but understanding its role in indicating where things are going and how they're improving, hugely important. I mean, one of the funniest tests that we ever ran, Sid, was for a brand who didn't think that improving the speed of their site was going to have an impact on conversions. Okay, no worries. So we ran an A/B test that put a delay on there. We showed the impact on conversion rate of slowing the site down further. But let's just say it was significant, and they realised that their clients, particularly the ones coming through paid acquisition, had a real need for speed. And so we've justified the need to improve speed and improve page load. And when we actually went in and optimized the infrastructure of their site, huge improvement in conversion. And yes, that's not a atypical A/B test, but again, if someone can't do the speed optimization project, if they can't validate the value, there's a reverse engineering strategy there that can be used.
So as you rightly said, not every test can be a winner, right? It's more about getting the learnings that you have, because if you're not testing something, you're basically not able to measure it. You're probably rolling out directly on your website, and if probably you would have tested it, you would have seen it not converting well. But now, since you have implemented it directly on the website, you're just losing on conversion. So the focus is not to get a winner, but the focus is to get the learning from that each and every optimization that you do.
Yeah, and I mean, forgive me, Steve, I've got lots of analogies and expressions. I mean, we talked before about hippos and the highest income person's opinion, but you know, we have an expression that gets used quite a bit. To assume is to make an ass of you and me, because at the end of the day, my expectations and my realities. I'm a 35, nearly 36. I'm getting old. Year old guy. I live in Australia, and I have all the biases that come with that. You know, if I'm trying to help a subscription tampon brand in North America sell more product, I have no idea. Like it's all opinions, and none of it's validated by my experience or knowledge. So again, having a process to eliminate bias, stupidly important.
Sean, we have observed that you and your team, assist e-commerce brands in selling internationally beyond Australia. So, how has your experimentation proven useful in testing the viability of international markets specifically?
I mean, that directly relates back to that assumption piece, but also that, at the end of the day, there are different expectations per region, per market. There's different data collection rules. There's so much there. Australia, you have a glass ceiling. It's probably a little bit lower than quite a few other markets. There's only so many people here to sell to. So, when those Shopify Plus merchants are expanding into new regions, they really need to optimize for that region, and assuming that they're going to just go in it. I'll sell it from Australia, or I'll drop ship it, or I'll freight it over in 7 days. Freight will be fine. Try that into North America, and the Amazon effect kills your brand. There is a next day expectation. Going into different regions, setting their expectations, understanding what an expectation is per market. Obviously, UX research is important, but that continuous test and learn model is more important. I mean, another good example there, going back to that health food brand, is actually a really good one. So they had a level of market dominance in the UK when they were working with us. They were trying to go global. And the reality was they'd had very much a domestic-centric marketing plan, which is fine. And while they had great validation in their home market, as soon as they went to other markets, people had never heard of them. So conversion rate was terrible. And the most simple way to go about it, and the way that they made the brand relatable and built trust, they basically had a homepage message on landing, which said they basically picked out the major city of each country that they're going into. We have sold enough meals to feed this place for a day. As soon as people could rationalize that, even though they weren't feeding people in Spain, in France, in Germany, in New York, they still tied it to that location, and all of a sudden they had a trust level that went through the roof. And that was a really interesting experiment, and it was one of the nice ones that actually had a replicable result in all of the markets they went into. Just definitely not the norm. Some of the other ones that we've seen that have just helped, I suppose, provide trust signals through the checkout journey was actually highlighting the courier service and making sure that the courier that was being used in region was being highlighted as part of the checkout process, purely for familiarity. And we saw that have pretty significant conversion rate improvements. And while that's not a big learning curve, at the same time, it was a very valuable one. If someone's going to throw in an additional 10% conversion through checkout, I'll take it. So yeah, those are a couple of ones. And again, understanding those different market expectations is huge. Another example of that was a plus size or an inclusive clothing brand, where the language and approach required in different markets around the world, whether it was going to Muslim countries, whether it was going into different regions that were just a little bit more proper or a lot less proper. Completely changing the language with ultimately the same product offering was really, really important for them in making them relatable, because the language had to be on point. So yeah, those are a couple of interesting ones.
When you said about language, because every geography or every country has a different way of perceiving things. So I believe a single headline definitely does not work for all your markets. You will have to utilize that headline, that content for each and every location, so that these guys are able to absorb that content the way they want to, and then that helps you drive your conversions as well. So Sean, we know that there's a lot of hype that is going all about AI, and AI is revolutionizing the landscape of e-commerce. So have you seen AI's influence expand over time, and what's the breakthrough do you anticipate in the next few years?
Yeah, cracky. Yes, I have seen it increasing over time. Obviously, quite a bit of adoption internally. I actually mentor a couple of SaaS platforms as well at the moment, who are sort of new entrants to market or existing market entrants in the AI space, which is interesting, particularly around recommendation engines, but which is all fun. I suppose, where am I seeing them at the moment? Where are we using them at the moment? Certainly AI sales and support widgets and chatbots. It makes sense. At the end of the day, it is something where, when you've got historical sales data, you can obviously optimize them and have them moving forward practically quite quickly. Support and customer service, offerings, similar sort of thing. As long as you've got the behavioral data, they're pretty easy to spin up. The biggest thing there that I've seen is actually getting the language right. Again, it's got to be, as much as the AI bot may be perfectly serving up the right content or recommendation, it's got to be in brand language. It's got to be consumable for the end user. So, we're seeing that. Certainly internally, we're using coding assistants to help not just bring things up to a base level of coding capability, but to bring it up to our standard. Where do I see the future evolution in the CRO space? Optimization bots, at the end of the day, helping guide experimentation strategy. Your data leads to this conclusion. How can we test that? And sort of planting the seeds and guiding that. There's still plenty of enterprise, optimization teams who honestly are testing stupid things. There's only so many times I can test a green button. So I think you're going to see progressively more of that in our space specifically. And I think you're going to also see the same, ultimately, AI analytics assistants, whether it's in optimization specifically or just at a base level. This product needs to be re-merchandised or thrown in a bin because it does not work. This campaign, I think, leveraging that as an automated feedback mechanism for marketers will be another one there that starts to surface progressively more and more. And again, there's a few platforms I'm chatting to who are branching into that space. It's just a matter of time to see how that goes.
Yeah, because AI has kind of made things really easy that way, because especially in terms of AI and optimization and AI and analytics, wherein you have tools that are probably integrated with ChatGPT, and they just throw up your ideas, for a landing page, or helps you understand what are the possible friction areas on your website that you can work upon. So I think that has also made things really easy for marketers and CRO experts out there, rather than doing a lot of manual work that they need to do, keeping aside the language work that's more personalized, definitely. But at least in terms of analyzing the basic friction areas on the website and working on those factors. Sean, for e-commerce brands wanting to optimize their stores but feeling hesitant about going all in, what advice do you have?
I think it's don't feel victim to perception. If I think about optimization when I first came into the market, sort of 2015, thereabouts, your expected optimization stack was honestly bloody expensive.
Mhm.
You might have been running Maximizer, Test and Target, Optimizely, whatever it may have been. And that's fine. They were the tools for the job. And obviously VWO were in there at that stage as well. I
Mhm.
think don't overinvest, but also don't be daft in thinking that your existing budget is a fixed budget.
Correct.
If you've got a $1 million or $100,000 a month in ad spend, what does it do to you to pull 10% of that spend to increase your RPU by 20%? I think that's a no-brainer. Again, staying still kills. That's just a fundamental truth. If you're not getting better, someone else is. So I think having that mentality in the business is important. I think it is a cultural lever. I think you do have to give people responsibility, and I do think you have to give them, decision-making rules. I mean, we ask our clients for those. We don't want to have to come back and ask for permission. We want to know the rules to work within, and off we go. We can be more proactive. We can deliver more value, and people need to be thinking that way, particularly in a global economy that's in a level of disruption at the moment.
Correct.
Got to be testing and improving. So, don't be tied to your fixed budgets. Think about how you can be more flexible and think about the value potential in that. And again, just have that testing mentality. It doesn't have to be on-site experiments with huge custom development requirements.
I really like that advice that you said, and I strongly agree with respect to especially about flexible budgets and the mentality to do CRO. I think that's the most important aspect to get you started with. And once you have the right set of right mentality and the right approach that you just want to follow, I think it's more like test cricket. It's about learning continuously as you go, right?
Yeah.
So there's never ending. A website can never be 100% perfect. There's always a scope to optimize, right?
Well, it's one of the conversations we keep having at the moment, Sid. I mean, I keep talking about the economies around the world, and unfortunately they are where they are. But we've got a whole lot of businesses talking about reducing total cost of ownership. At the end of the day, it's technology cost, it's team cost, it's opportunity cost. And so many of them talk about doing it, but no one wants to pull the trigger. If we re-platform, there's a risk in that. Yeah, there is. Saying there's a big risk too. That's one that then you move forward and you think about the team cost aspect of things. We're working with a few different groups at the moment. We're looking at their FTE earnings of an e-com team on a certain, and it's horrendous.
Yep, totally. Yes.
Legacy technology is pain. So I think the things there again is how do they leverage a test and learn mentality? Guys, go spin up a SaaS e-com platform in a new market. Understand how easy it is to use. Understand the value. Have an MVP mentality, then test, learn, adopt.
One thing that AI will replace in the next 3 years. What is your opinion on that?
Tax accountants. Tax accountants. I'm doing progressively more work with accounting consulting firms, and I think that the realization that they have is the same realization everyone else has. So they're very much pushing the consulting aspect and less the accounting. So I think that's one, sure.
Sean, on a lighter note, what's your favorite travel destination and why?
Probably depends on the scenario. So I've got a young family. So for us, we go to a spot at the Gold Coast each year, which I take my son to the beach, go fishing in afternoons. It's quite nice and relaxing, and obviously e-commerce and digital can be a little bit too much of 24/7 thing. I think for us as a family, that's quite lovely. I think separate to that, I've always enjoyed travel, so I've got a couple of sort of favourite cities around the world. I do love getting up to Toronto in spring, looking out over the Great Lakes. It's pretty awesome. And then I spent a bit of time here in Holland and a bit of time in Amsterdam, Amersfoort, that sort of area. A bit of time in Barcelona, and I think quite enjoy the Dutch. I describe them as German Californians. Very efficient. They really do enjoy having fun. And Barcelona is just a beautiful part of the world. So,
yep.
Yeah. How about yourself, Sid?
Football? Do you follow football by any chance?
I do. Interesting timing, Sid. We actually just launched a site for an EPL team. So,
which team was it?
I cannot tell you. I'll tell you next time.
Yes.
But yes, no, I follow the football a little bit. I'm more of a rugby player by default, and then being Australian, I do keep an eye on the cricket as well.
Because it's in said Barcelona, so all I could think was of Camp Nou and the Barcelona FC. I do follow football as well. I mean, now it has kind of reduced, but I used to be a diehard Cristiano Ronaldo fan. I think since the time he left Real Madrid, it kind of things really changed, and since then I've kind of lost touch in football.
I quite enjoyed sitting on a balcony at my friend's house in Barcelona, listening to El Clasico.
Oh, crazy! Yes,
and just hearing the sound of the city ebb and flow.
Totally, that's
unreal.
Altogether, I get it. But I believe gone are those days, because Messi is no more with Barcelona. We don't have Ronaldo with Real Madrid. So those I believe for me those were like literally the golden days in terms of football, wherein I actually used to enjoy that competition between Barca and Madrid. So crazy days. Yeah. Sean, we just have the last round. It's more of the rapid fire questions. While I have sort of questions for you, and if you can just throw in your 2 cents, right?
Sure.
So if you're starting a career in CRO today, what is the one thing that you would do differently?
Probably focus more on voice of customer.
Okay.
I think when I first jumped in to CRO, we had so much of a tendency to dig too deep into pure traffic analysis and data analytics, and not enough into what the customer is actively saying. And again, it may be that running through traffic analysis and running through and understanding that's great. Get a lot of granularity there.
Right.
But if I've got a cohort of 80% of my customer service tickets are around one specific topic, let's fix that. Like the speed of value realization of voice of customer done well, I think is huge. And it's still something that's fundamentally done poorly by a lot of businesses. NPS is the bane of my existence. I do not see any value or insight coming from an arbitrary score. Give me a text response. Give me actual insight and let me leverage that. And it's the quantitative qualitative feedback.
A newsletter that every CRO professional must follow?
I couldn't pull one off the top of my head. In my experience, I didn't really stick to newsletters. I got more value from my network and just talking directly. So I built relationships with a couple of different people around the world. The guys at conversion.com back in the day, team at Good Growth in the UK, conversion rate experts. The CRE's newsletter used to be pretty good.
Okay.
Oh gosh, who else? There's so many different ones that you get to know over the different conferences and events.
No, I really like that point of network that you said. I think that's what our listeners can also look into. It's more about the networking that you have here. 3 books that you would recommend to our listeners.
Gosh, which ones am I playing with at the moment? Give me 2 seconds. I've got a tab open with a couple.
Or even any one that you probably have on top of your mind.
Good to Great by Jim Collins.
Okay.
Why companies make the leap and others don't, I think, is one that I'm reading. That's quite a useful one. Another one is the E-Myth, which is, can't remember who did the E-Myth. It's definitely on the list. Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss.
Yeah.
That's a bit of a cracker. So yeah, those are a couple that certainly come to mind.
What's your go-to travel destination in Australia?
Honestly, something a bit different. So I'm not so much these days, but used to be quite outdoorsy. So in Western Australia, at the top of Western Australia, is a region called the Kimberley, which I've travelled across it a couple of times, and every couple of hours you're coming to a major waterfall or gorge or destination, and it is remote and it feels remote.
Yep.
So on a trip I did through there before I moved to the UK, gosh, I am getting old. I went to a location on the Kimberley coast where I didn't see another person for over a week, and it was brilliant. It's not often said that you go in a location camping on a beach and fishing and that where you don't run out of bait, you run out of hooks.
Correct.
And so as a fisherman who enjoys a bit of fishing, I ran out of hooks, and I thought that was pretty cool.
I feel you. No worries, but that sounds interesting. You weren't able to see it, a single person in around for a week. So that's probably the kind of peaceful location that I'm looking forward to as well. So
I'll send you the details, Sid. You can book the flights.
totally, I'll add it to my list. If not a CRO specialist, what other profession would you have chosen?
It's as I said, I like commercial and I like opportunity. So
Okay.
I probably don't like study enough to really go down the road of an M&A lawyer or anything like that, but I certainly enjoy sort of the growth hacking aspect of things. So quite a few of the businesses we're working with at the moment, it's really around helping them understand where their opportunities lie. So I think be some sort of a growth consultant one way or another. We're supporting a few of our clients in not directly in M&A structure and strategy, but sort of helping them understand sort of consolidation costs as they consolidate their tech, helping them understand the opportunity they've got in first-party data in their CDP or Snowflake or whatever else they've got data stored, and that's just fun. It's interesting and thinking about the application of that data. So something in that field. I'm not sure exactly where.
Fair enough. One CRO metric that you wish people would stop obsessing over?
I think benchmarking conversion rates against other brands in their category is daft.
Totally agree. Yes.
At the end of the day, you acquire your traffic differently. You have a different point of difference. Like, it's stupid. It is fundamentally stupid. So I think go and look at your own baseline and then improve it.
The last one for you, a dream or a goal you want to achieve in the next 3 years?
To do my other job. I would like to continue the business growth. I would like to continue to see the development of our team and not be redundant. I don't want to stop working. I think the day I retire is the day I die. But I would like to get to the point where there is less need for me. I want to be doing the stuff that's fun. It's probably that funny thing, Sid. A lot of people I speak to in a similar space in a growing business actually grow into a spot of management and want to go back to the tools. I don't necessarily want to do that altogether, but I do enjoy the on the tools element of things. I do enjoy uncovering insight and developing insight and building different business models. So I think that would be my ambition, is to do myself out of a job but continue in a job.
Perfect. And I think that was it from my end. I've really enjoyed having this conversation with you. It has been really insightful, especially hearing from somebody who is an expert, in the field of CRO, and what is the approach that you follow, what are the kind of nuances that you look into. So I think me and all the listeners will have a lot of insights to take out, from this podcast. And I really look forward to meeting you once again, hosting you again in several sessions. Maybe we can talk about specific topics. But yes, it has been a fantastic conversation. Thank you so much for having us today, Sean.
Not a problem, Sid. Thank you for having me on. And mate, do let me know if you make your way down to Australia anytime soon.
Definitely. I'll definitely keep you posted, and we'll stay in touch. Yeah.
Sounds good. Thanks, Sid.
Right. Thanks, Sean. Thanks a lot for joining. Take care. Bye-bye.